Okay, my algebra students, we're going to be doing some polynomial work. Well, actually, laws of exponents would be a better way to say it. It's the beginning of polynomials. And it's multiplying variables. Now, the first law that we're going to talk about is what happens when you multiply two things that have the same base. Well, remember, a power is the number of the factor that's being multiplied together. So how many of the base? So if I say 2 to the 4th, that really means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, meaning you have 4 of them. That's what a power means. You have 4 of the bases multiplied together. So if I have 2 cubed times 2 squared, I have 3 of these. I'm multiplying 2 more 2. So altogether I have 5 of them. And that's what the rule says. When you multiply two things, same base, you add the exponents. So if I said what's x to the 6th times x to the 10th, you would say, well, I have 6 of them. I'm multiplying 10 more of them together, so altogether I'm multiplying 16 of them. Or you could just say, hey, you add the powers. So x to the 4th times x to the 11th. When you multiply two things same base, you add the powers. So what would this be? X to the 6th times x, x to the 10th times x to the 11th, and x to the 15th times x to the 14th. What would those be, my students? Well, when you multiply two things same base, you add the powers. 6 plus 1 is 7. When you multiply two things same base, you add the powers. When you multiply two things same base, you add the powers. Now the second law is, what do you do when you have a base, raise it to a power, then raise it to another power? Oops. So if I have x cubed and I want to square it, well, that square means you have 2 of these multiplied together. Well, law 1 says when you multiply two things same base, you add the powers. So 2 3's multiplied together would be 6. 2 times 3. So this would be x to the m times n. So the rule says whenever you have a base and you're raising it to a power, then you raise it to another power, you multiply the powers. So x to the 10th to the 4th, when you have a base to a power and raise it to another power, you multiply the powers. X to the 6th to the 5th, whenever you have a base raised to a power to another power, you multiply the powers. So x to the 6th to the 3rd, x squared to the 10th, what would those be, my students? And hopefully you're saying, well, x to the 6th, raise it to the 3rd, x to the 18th. And this would be x to the 20th. Last law we're doing today. What do you do when you have a product to a power? So if I said, what's 2x to the 3rd power? Well, hopefully you'd say, well, 2x cubed would be 2x, 2x, 2x. So you'd have 3 2's multiplied together and 3 x's. So do you see you just raised all 3, or you raised it to the 3rd power? And that's what it says to do. Raise both or every term of the product to that power. So if I said 5x to the 3rd and I want to raise it to the 2nd power, you would say, okay, what's 5 squared and x cubed squared? Well, 5 squared is 25, and a base to a power to another power, you should know from the last law, is x to the 6. You multiply the powers. So if I said x to the 4th, y to the 6th, to the 10th power, that would mean x to the 4th to the 10th, y to the 6th to the 10th. The rule says a base to a power, you multiply. Woohoo! So if I have negative x to the 6th, y to the 7th, and I set to 11th power, well, you raise each one to 11th power. Now, an odd number to 11th power is negative. I said that wrong. A negative to an odd power is negative. Base to a power, when you raise power, multiply. When you raise a base to a power, then raise it to another power, you multiply. And this would be y to the 77. Try a couple, my friends. X is 6, y to the 3rd, and x to the 10th, y to the 20th, to the 4th. See if you can figure those two out for me, please. Okay, this would be x to the 18th, y cubed, because a base to a power, all raised to another power, you multiply the powers. X to the 40, y to the 80. Now there's one more law we'll go over on Thursday and Friday if everything goes right. But I think that was pretty good. Have a good day.